Thank you for joining us. We have Bill Bivona with us from Hardwood Design out of Rhode Island. He has been in the stair business for many years, past president of the SMA, has done a tremendous amount for the SMA, and just looking forward to your insights and advice that you have for us today. So
well, thanks for
a lot
having me.
joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I guess we could start out maybe with how long have you been in the business? How did you get your start? How did you start out in the stair world?
So I've been in the woodworking business for 37 years. And I started out really wanting to be a boat builder. I mean, a furniture maker rather. Then I got into boat building, and then we were doing all kinds of architectural millwork, and having limited success with all of it. And finally, we took on some stair work, not having done any before. So it was really totally trial and error. But as we got good at it, we decided that we would just do stairs. So after about 10 years of doing everything, including stairs, we started doing nothing but stairs. And it's been great ever since. It's just been fantastic.
Nice. Was that first stair job more difficult than you expected? Easier than you expected?
I think it was way more difficult because we just, I mean, we were approaching it as carpenters too. And so it was basically a nail over. We didn't do housed stringers or and we even struggled with things like gee, we don't have the skill saw that tilts the right way. So I guess we'll try it with the jigsaw, for the mitered side. And you can imagine how that turned out, So we struggled, every part of it, including having installed a couple of the turned balusters upside down. We didn't even notice until we stood back and said, "Oh my," And so those funny little things that we all went through as beginners.
So you literally learned on the fly.
Basically. We really did. Yeah. And we didn't even read about it, or we totally ham and egged it from the get-go. And but we were good woodworkers, so we overcame those challenges, and of course we made nothing on the first stairs. We should have just wrote the customer a check.
Yeah.
And on top of it, we were buying all of the parts and materials retail. So we were paying huge dollars for all the components. And so it was not good at first.
Rough times.
Yeah.
So you probably didn't even have a wood shop. Did you start out of your truck? Or
no, we had a shop because we were also doing cabinets, and really we were all trying to make furniture too. And so on the one hand, we were sort of overqualified as woodworkers and underqualified as carpenters, and so we had a really little shop space with very, very basic tools, and we did some of the components in the shop, trying to put tread returns on, things like that. But otherwise, we were nailing it. We were just nailing it down. Yeah.
Good story. So that first experience was definitely not a positive one all around. What held you with stairways? What kept you there? The financial part obviously was not good the way it sounds, but what held you?
Well, I think like everything, as you get better at something, it becomes a more positive experience. And really, there was a serious lack of capable stair guys in our market. and so as more and more people heard that we could, do stairs, pretty well, that started to become the biggest part of the business, and so that's what held us. And then we stopped, we stopped underpricing ourselves, for sure. We were getting better at understanding, what things, what it took to build things. And we also got better at buying materials and really understanding the limitations of the materials, especially when we started with circular work. So that's kind of what kept us.
Nice. Very interesting. What has been your greatest challenge as you've evolved into the stair business?
I think for sure it is the field work, maintaining good installation crews, and having guys out there operating safely, efficiently, and effectively in the field. It just continues to be a challenge, even more now than before, because the designs, I think, are really evolving. We're seeing design concepts that are just mind-boggling, and so I'm really still often surprised that we do what we do with the resources that we have available. So for sure it's labor related, in the field, especially where you just don't have enough control. When the truck drives away with a big stair on it or a big rail package, you never know what's going on out there. You just don't.
Because you can't be everywhere.
You can't be
taking
everywhere.
care of everything.
No. Yeah. And for sure, I think, tools like this are a help, because we'll do FaceTime calls, when the installers run into something, but still, it's a challenge. It really is. These guys are really working so hard out there in the field, and oftentimes the conditions are really, really tough. Overcrowded work sites, not enough room to set up tools, just all kinds of constraints, and they do their best, for sure, but it's just a challenge for those guys and for me.
Do you have any advice for the rest of us stair builder owners as far as retaining employees or attracting good employees?
I wish I did. I think for sure, our greatest potential is in people that we already have, and I think the fact is, all of my best guys, we built, we trained. These were guys that started as youngsters and worked their way up into a really high skilled spot. And so I don't think there's really a lot of potential for attracting the kind of people that we want to attract to grow the company. I think that's not very likely. And what is funny is new people with my company always seem to drop out of the sky. Literally someone will come knocking at the door and say, gee, I heard about you guys, or a friend of a friend told me I should come see you. I'm new to the area, or something like that. And those hires that were, sort of unsolicited always work out the best, And
Amen.
I think it's weird. Like, one of my best guys actually was a baker, and he turned out to just be an incredible bench guy. He could do anything, and the guy was trained as a chef, a baker, you know. So he made really good snacks and really good stairs. It was kind of an awesome combination.
That's a win-win.
It's a win-win.
Break times are wonderful.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. That's very interesting. I think we all struggle with that challenge.
Yeah.
You really appreciate the good people, but they're hard to come by.
Yeah. And so you know, I mean, we work to keep them and appreciate them. But you know, people come and go. I mean, you know, people's spouses, you know, get a different job, they move. You know, people decide they've had enough of the chaos of stair building and shop work. But you know, we do our best to keep people happy, and that's all we can do.
Nice. Well, thank you. Another question. Who has been the greatest positive influence in your life as a stair builder, and maybe in your life as a whole as well?
You know, I started out being really passionate about woodworking. Even like as a youngster, you know, my father was always toiling on the house, and I liked the carpentry stuff. You know, he also did plumbing and electrical, and so he really inspired me to fall in love with woodworking. And although he was a fairly decent carpenter, he wasn't a joiner. You know, he wasn't a woodworker per se. So he got me going, and then I was able to get a boat building apprenticeship, where I met the two partners that the two guys that I became partners with that started Hardwood Design. And so that was David Lawrence and Bruce Decker, both unbelievably great woodworkers, and both of them quite a bit older than I am. So Bruce is 10 years older than I am, and David Lawrence is 15 years older than I am. So they agreed to take me on as a partner when I was 22, you know, just out of school. And so that I think was really, that was huge. So I really learned about woodworking and technique from those guys. And then, you know, later on through the association with the SMA, guys like David Wynn and David Cooper were really, you know, influences that took my company to the next level. You know, being able to rub elbows with David Wynn, you know, who was a really, you know, a CEO of a major, you know, stair parts manufacturer. And he was really generous with his advice. I was on the board of directors with him, and it just gave me a lot of confidence, you know, sitting across the table from a guy like that. Same with David Cooper, you know, just so much knowledge, so much stair building knowledge in those two guys. That is just something that was just a huge influence on my business, and even the way I approach stair building, personnel, you know, so many different things that I could tap into with those guys. Just fantastic.
It's amazing the resources we have and the people of the SMA.
Yeah.
And you, Bill, you were one of those people to me when I first became involved with the SMA.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. It's always wonderful to hear what you have to say. So this is a pretty good deal here to be sitting here asking you these questions. What is an achievement you are super proud of, extra proud of in your life?
I would have to say, like, looking back at the having built a company, you know, from nothing, has really, 37 years, I can sometimes, when I'm turning off the lights and about to walk out the door and turn the key, I literally stand at the door and look in at this crazy thing I built with my, obviously with my partners who are long gone. But my, all of the people that worked with me, this thing is really, it's pretty cool. And not only the hardware, the machines and the racks of lumber, but it's the relationships, with customers and vendors and subcontractors. It's really, it's been a very, very positive thing. I think it takes, you're the same, I think if everybody could do what you and I do and others, it would be a different, market situation. But you have to have a pretty cool head to be able to close your eyes at night. So
True.
that's something that I'm proud of too. I'm not falling apart.
Separating the work from your personal life.
Yeah.
Could you give us some advice on that? Or maybe you don't.
Yeah, and I have to say, the older I get, the better I get at it, at separating it. But I would say that it's hard. I think entrepreneurs just have these tendencies to always, have half of their brain thinking about the business, and the other half is watching their 2-year-old blow out the candles, whereas the rest of the normal world are 90% focused on the 2-year-old, so that's tough. I do find myself getting better at being in the moment. And I think that's a function of feeling secure in the business too. I think when you're starting out and the margins and the the safety net is so thin, that you kind of have a little bit of uneasiness, as a background feeling.
The big battles back then are nothing today.
That's it. Like when
yeah.
you first start out and you're using the deposits from the new job to pay for the materials from the job you just finished, until those things start to level out, and your receivables start to equal your payables. It's a little bit of a of a struggle.
Some sleepless nights, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I guess that leads into the next question very well. What advice could you offer someone starting out in the stair world or considering a career in stairways?
Like I said before, when we first started out in stairways, we didn't really reach out to other professionals. We didn't seek out, resources to understand the mechanics of the trade, and I would say to somebody new, there's so many resources out there, including the SMA. Like now we have YouTube too, things like that. I mean, I think probably the younger crowd is much better at just going right to the internet, right? To learn how to do things. But I would say also that, that one-on-one contact with another stair professional as a mentor, or a master carpenter as a mentor, to understand the mechanics of it, because we made a lot of mistakes. We didn't have those resources, so it really was trial by fire. So that for sure is something that I would advise. And then the other thing is understanding, and I don't think I really fully understood this until maybe 5 or 6 years ago, that that being successful, satisfied, having a sense of accomplishment really is very closely tied to the quality of your relationships. And so now, what does your footer say? Because your footer tells it on your email. See the good. If you look for the good in everyone, you'll probably find it, or something like that, right?
Yes.
And so it's so true. I think that that I really try never to burn a bridge, no matter what, because you never know when the person on the other side of the bridge wants to come back to you, or you may want to go back to them. And so you have to be patient and understanding and willing to put aside things that gave you heartburn, but when you have really good relationships at all levels, success will really follow. It really, really will. And it doesn't matter whether, if it's stair building or, making shower curtain hooks, it really doesn't. No matter what, those relationships are just so important. And I didn't get that as a young man. I was a little bit hot-headed and impatient. If people weren't marching to my beat, I think I was getting a little frustrated and snotty about it, But I think that's maturity, right?
I think we need to broadcast that to the world today.
Yeah.
It would be a much better place.
Yeah.
So I just asked what advice you would offer to someone starting out. What advice would you give your younger self back when you first started in the stair business?
I think that same thing,
Same thing.
that relationship sermon. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah. And I say, I think the other part of it really is to do a better job at the balance between business and family and personal. You know what I mean? I was so so very focused on the business and being my passion was woodworking and building things, including my homes and my you renovate a home and then you decide you want to sell that one and go to the next one to renovate, so on. And I really did. I worked a little too hard. And so I would say that whole idea of really trying to be aware of being in the moment for your family is really important. And you can't get that one back. You know what I mean? You can't undo it, redo it. So that's another biggie. Yeah.
Wonderful. Do you have a big regret, like a biggest regret as a business owner, stair builder?
See,
Probably
I
related to the same thing.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think the other, one of the regrets I have is in the business, and this is even more recently, I kind of stopped taking the time to really train the guys. I was kind of, had a philosophy of hoping that everybody in the company would be a natural and would be able to get to a level of woodworking and stair building and they would be able to get to a level at the same pace that I did, say, and these guys are like dying to be trained. They're dying to be trained in specific structured method, and I really, the pace of the the jobs. You've got the customer breathing down your neck, right? And so it's a little bit hard to stop and really train. So one of the things that we started doing in the shop, and this is only recently, we have a morning huddle, and in the huddle we ask, who's doing something interesting that the rest of the guys should see. And so now I'm giving everybody in the shop permission to stop, gather interested people together to see a setup or an assembly or a process that is interesting, something that we all should know about. And boy, the guys really love that, and it doesn't really take nearly as much time as you would think, and the payback is huge, so when the guys can really see a success or a failure, it's amazing. I wish I had started that structured training, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, because I didn't. This is only this year,
Interesting.
So I would say that lack of real training, and it's biting me in the rear end right now.
You struggle with training and spending time with the guys, probably,
yes,
because you're spread so thin.
Yes,
yeah,
because you lose focus. Your only focus is marching to the beat of the customer.
Mm-hmm.
And so I call it pumping the flat tire. You have time to pump up the flat tire every morning before you go to work, but you don't have time to take it down the street to have the tire repaired.
Okay. There you
go. So investment.
So you take those huddles, you call them, to instill your values, the hardwood design way, so to speak.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And like I said, I think the guys, everybody's really receptive to it. The guys that want to learn are really receptive to being able to stop what they're doing to look at something. And the guys that are knowledgeable really get an ego boost in having permission to grab the guys together at any point in the day to show them, what they're doing,
Nice.
to be passing that along. The unfortunate thing is it takes seeing something a couple of times, seeing and doing a couple of times before it's, before somebody that is new at it can get good at it. But you have to let them, you have to give them permission to do that,
Form the habits.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And the other thing we're working on is actually documenting SOPs, making a document for a specific process, and making sure that the guys get that. That's a big help too. Otherwise, everybody does the same thing 4 different ways, and that is not generally a good practice within a shop,
So I'm sure you do a huge variety of things. You encounter new processes with every job, probably because of the product you create.
Yeah.
How do you deal with the SOPs with that environment?
And it's funny because it goes, process goes all the way back to engineering, right? So, we were talking about this the other day. So how many different ways are there to create a curve in a component? You can laminate it, you can kerf it, you can do a combination of both of those. The laminations can be, or you can saw it, right? Saw it from a solid block, and engineering, they need to know which one is appropriate for that component. And it's surprising how often they pick the lesser appropriate, thing, right? So so there has to be some way for them to know. There has to be, we started to make we have a chords kerfing machine. So we decided to create a little display and of examples, so that the guys would understand the depth and frequency of the kerfs given a certain bend. And that kind of thing takes time to make that display, right? But it sits right above the machine, and it really solved a lot of trial and error for the newer guys.
That was an SOP you could apply across a broad
Yes.
spectrum of projects.
Yeah.
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 Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. What do you see as the biggest challenge for the stair industry in the next decade?
I think, like everybody's talking, it's labor at every level, from engineering to shop fabrication to installation. We're all seeing this lack of labor resource out there. We were all talking about noticing that the field guys, especially, were getting older and older, right? So 10 years ago, we're all saying, gee, is anybody noticing that the really, really good guys, the seasoned guys, are like, in their 50s, late 50s and 60s. Well, now, especially with COVID, there was a lot of guys that retired earlier than they had intended, and so that's a huge challenge, because you can't invent this stuff. With what happens in the market, the market is so strong right now, it sort of forces you to pay, a lot of money per hour, say, for whatever is out there that's available. And that might not be a very talented hire, So that's a really frustrating thing, because we have budget constraints. Most of the time it's fixed pricing, for every aspect of what we do. And so when you're start to watch the hours, accumulate, and you're going, wow, you and I live on whatever's left over, right? And when there's nothing left over, all you're doing is like, cycling money through the account, so that's huge. That's a huge challenge. I think the other challenge for some of us is really keeping up with technology. There's technology in materials, technology in adhesives, technology in software, in machinery, and I think to stay on top of your game, to keep the company refreshed, you have to be up on that stuff. And it's a little like, for me, I'm not a techie guy, and so it's harder for me, to keep up with that stuff. So I'm getting really good at just writing the check for it, and letting the younger guys, sort of, pursue it and take care of it. Even like the scheduling programs, I find, are just really, really hard to learn, but essential.
So related to that, you might have partially answered this. Where do you see things getting better for the stair industry?
Same answer.
Would be related to that,
to some degree, yeah.
Technology.
Yeah. Technology.
Yeah.
Yeah. technology. And I think I'm seeing a little bit of a social change too, in terms of parents being a little more receptive to having one of their kids be a tradesman, and so, because I think for a long time it was really discouraged. You weren't people weren't encouraging their child to be a carpenter, maybe a plumber, but they really weren't encouraging it. And it's a noble trade. I mean, I think there's satisfaction, in making things, creating things with your hands that you're not getting from being a money manager, or a stockbroker or whatever, or a video game inventor, So I am seeing that, even in people my age who have, kids that are in their 20s and 30s, they're okay with it. They're okay with it now, which is great, because we need it.
Mm-hmm. Need to get rid of that negative stigma.
You can get rid of that negative stigma, and I think, what's going to happen too is I think it'll become an occupation that you can make more money at, right? I think that I think people will start to realize the value.
Become a master at your trade, you'll be able to demand whatever price you want, very likely, 10 to 20 years.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, as your career progressed, what issue became more difficult for you to deal with?
I think again, the technology, the technology and getting back to the labor part, it's the, I think when that labor is such a constraint for growth, that's frustrating. I always say it's like you're standing on top of a gold mine that's just under the surface, and you have you have a busted shovel and a 68-year-old guy that has bad shoulders and can't use it. That's what's going to constrain us all, is the labor thing, unless we take it on ourselves to make something happen there. By creating those people.
So what became easier for you as your career progressed?
Well, we're fortunate to have been around, and been, through recessions and bad times and good times. We're fortunate to have built a brand in our market. And so we don't have to do that much selling anymore. We can definitely pick and choose our jobs much more now than before. And we do, we can look at a job and say, you know what, that job is, that'll be the best job we never did. Whereas before, I think, maybe it's ego, or maybe you really just needed to fill the plate. You would take on things that were just never going to be a success, with a client that was never going to be happy. Right. So I think as you get more experience and more maturity, you can spot those things a lot quicker.
You get better at judging those coming in the door.
Judging the people, and also at a glance, looking at the job, and just sort of saying, woof, that's not going to be fun. Yeah.
I think I could say the same, but we still miss some here and there.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Could you share an experience that had a major impact on your life and how it changed things for you in the stair industry?
I would say that the experience that changed my professional life, honestly, and I'm not trying to be cheesy here, was definitely the earlier SMA meetings, conferences for me, because I was really meeting people that were either at the same level that I was at, which was a really low level, and I think misery loves company, right? So when you're commiserating with other strugglers, it makes you feel a little better. But at the same time, at those same meetings, if you're not shy and willing to put yourself out there, you got to talk to people that were really, successful and knowledgeable and generous, So yeah, I really would say that that the SMA meetings were really big, and then in my personal life, of course, my children and my wife, but no, it's been good.
Very interesting. I guess I'm about out of questions. So do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I'm about out of answers.
Okay. All right. Well, very, very good talking to you and hearing what you have to say, and fascinating story. Very fascinating.
Thank you. Yeah, but no, this is a great thing. I'll have to.
Yeah, I'm looking forward.
I can't wait to listen to the ones with your other victims.
Well, we have several on the list. There's some very, very interesting people in the SMA.
Yeah, there are.
We're lucky to be plugged into that. Very lucky.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I encourage it. That's a great thing. Thank you, especially for you and the other board members, for really putting all your volunteer time in to make the stair industry great for the rest of us.
You've had your turn, so now it's ours.
Yeah, and I'll take another soon.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah. All right, great.
All right, thanks a lot, Bill.